allegations. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. The big news of the day in Nashville, Tennessee. Predators GM Barry Trotz has announced his retirement plans. Reading from the team's news release, Trotz will step down as soon as a new GM is in place. The search will begin immediately. Trotz will remain with the organization as an advisor through his contract term, which is the 2026-2027 season. And joining us to discuss all that is Predators CEO Sean Henry. Hi, Sean. How are you?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on. I think the search started at about 8:34
Okay.
after Elliotte tweeted it out, because then my phone started lighting up.
Well, we have Elliotte Friedman on the program coming up next.
I know. That's why I mentioned his name. I'm just laying down his rose petals for him. I'm like a warm-up act for that guy. He's not even from America.
We have adopted him. We have adopted him as part of our city. But yes, Elliotte Friedman, who did break the news today, will join us right after Sean Henry. Don't let Sean sell himself short. He is more than just a warm-up act.
That's true. I'm the opening act. He's nothing. He's just following after me.
So here's a question that I have seen a lot since this news became public this morning. Why today? As it says in the news release, Trotz told Bill Haslam in December that he would be stepping down at the conclusion of his contract. Quote, after some discussion, we elected, to begin a search for my replacement now. So why today? Why not a week ago? Why not at the start of the calendar year? Why was today the day that this was announced?
Well, I think if we did it January 1st or a week ago or a week from now, your question would say, why today? So people seem to think that, Bill and Barry, or me and Bill speak every 9 weeks. Barry and I talk 3 or 4 times a day. I mean, literally. Bill speaks to me at least once a day, Barry about once a day. The three of us together, probably weekly, at least on a phone call or Zoom, in person every other week. So when Barry first started talking about, hey, my contract's up at the end of next year, this is kind of what I'm thinking from a personal standpoint. What does that mean for the team? Then you start rounding that out. What does it mean for the team? We start thinking about what the next steps are. When's the best time to replace you? When we are in the middle of, you like using the words almost rebuild or whatever you're weird about what we're doing or not doing. But where we are as an organization, we are resetting where we are, right? We are obviously missed the playoffs 2 out of the past 3 years. This year we're sitting a couple points out of the playoffs. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward? We are definitely in the middle of resetting who we are. Look at our draft picks, the prospects that we have. Things are pretty rosy. Do you want to replace Barry as the GM this year or next year? And then when Barry starts talking about it, he said, well, I think the right time is at the end of the season. So we're going to do it at the end of the season. When do you want to start that search? Well, there's going to be 2 or 3 openings that are out there. So if you're one of the first ones to publicly say we're going to be doing this, number one, you're going to shake the tree a little bit for maybe a candidate or two that you're not thinking about, that's not on your radar. Maybe it's someone that might think about extending their contract right now with their existing team. Maybe they slow that down a little bit now for a chance to talk to us. So we thought the timing was pretty good right before the Olympics, from some personal time for some different people. Today was the best day instead of tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. So we figured, let's do it now. Let's take advantage of the Olympic break. Let's see get really, really organized, make some phone calls, field all the inbound they're going to get. I mean, honestly, for myself, I've probably gotten 12 different people reaching out personally for themselves or for one of their candidates or for their brother-in-law who's really good at fantasy hockey. But right away, we just forward everything to CA. So I think, a week, 10 days from now, they're going to be able to say, hey, here's a group of people. How do you whittle that down? How do you look at it? Doesn't mean it's a complete list. There might be some people we can't talk to that we want to because of contractual arrangements, or they just want to see where the team ends up. So that's why it's today. I don't know if that answers the question versus tomorrow or last week, but that's why.
We spoke to Andrew Brunette and Roman Yossi this morning before we heard from you and Bill Haslam and Barry Trotz, and both Brunette and Yossi seemed stunned by this. Brunette said he found out at 8:30 this morning that this was going down. Were the coaches and the players, for lack of a better phrase, Sean, kept in the dark about this? Was this something that they were aware could happen? Were they just shocked that it happened today? Or is this something that they knew nothing about until the news broke this morning?
They knew nothing about it at all. I mean, it was a very, very small group. I mean, really, it was Bill, Barry, myself over the past, whatever it's been, a month or 6 weeks. And that's how we like to run things. You keep things pretty tight until you know what your plan is going to be. And then you bring one or two more people to the fold. We had a conversation with our ownership group yesterday afternoon and explained to them what we're doing and what Barry wants to do. It's the right time for Barry for a lot of reasons. You heard those today. I would hate to replace Barry Trotz in any position. I mean, the man really is a legend in our game and most definitely in the city. I mean, he's just an incredible person.
Sean Henry is with us. And, Sean, it was, having been at Barry Trotz's introductory press conference in whatever year that was, 1997, I guess it was, the year before the Predators took the ice. I've seen him at a lot of these things. I remember when he was, stopping his coaching, he had sort of an exit press conference and then his re-entry a couple years ago. Like, I've been in them all. The thing about him that always stands out is just him, the person, right? He wears the emotions on the sleeve. And that, I think, when you think about what he's going to be remembered for, it's him, the person, as well as the hockey person.
It is, man. Again, you've known him for almost 30 years, and there's no one like him. There's never been a coach like him. There's never been a GM like him. He truly, truly cares about every person he meets. And whether he were a carpenter or a teacher or a policeman or a coach, hockey player, scout, or GM, he's just different. He truly cares about what's happening in the community. He's a force of nature, for the charities that he's passionate about. I mean, he created the Best Buddies chapter in Tennessee, in Washington, D.C., and on Long Island. You think about that. I mean, the man just cares about things, and it's contagious. He didn't say to Pekka and Shea and then later Roman, you should carry this forward, you should do this. They did it because they saw him as a mentor. And I think we all did. I mean, you had a chance to probably do some things because you saw Barry do it. He made getting involved in other people's lives and charities a natural part of who he was. And you see that and you realize, wait a minute, I got to slow down. I'm not that busy. If Barry can do it, I can do it.
I was also thinking this. He really does seem, it's a little bit outside the box. Not everybody does it this way. I think it's fair to say, but it seems like part of his thinking is he wants to set up the next person as well as he possibly can, and the organization, to give them enough time to find the right person.
And that's where the thing came from. I mean, Barry, when we were talking about coming back as the GM, he was so adamant that all he wanted to do, it sounds small when I say it that way, his goal was to make this organization the best organization in sports, definitely in the NHL. And here are the things we need to do. Here's the 4 or 5, 6 things we need to do. Let's take them on. Let's do them. But regardless of where the team is, when my time is done, we're going to be better off today than we were yesterday. He's lived his life that way, and we sure are. We're better today than we were 3 years ago when we re-entered it. I'm looking at our prospect pool. It's absolutely incredible. It's one of the leaders in our league. 7 guys play at World Juniors, a month or so ago. You look at who we have playing in juniors and in college. You see the guys on the ice tonight that are really emerging, stepping forward. The guys waiting to get their chance to step into the NHL. And again, you have this draft coming up and next year's draft with a multitude of picks. The goal is to have multitude of picks in the top 3 rounds, guys that could really make an impact. Before Adam asked the question, you're going to tank to get into the lottery and hopefully get that number 1 pick. You either want to have the 16th or worst pick or the first pick. Last year we finished third worst. We ended up with the fifth pick. There's no guarantee in our league that if you finish in those bottom, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll end up with 2, 3, 4, 5 pick. So any orchestrated tank would never happen with our team. With that said, if we miss the playoffs, I sure hope we're drafting number one. But you can't pick that.
Can you explain maybe to the fans about CAA? Bill Haslam, I thought, did a really good job of talking about the committee, but the organization of CAA, I know Nick Saban is a part of the committee as well. Can you explain what that is going to do? Because you hear that in college a lot, right? The search firms and things like that. Confidentiality, I think, is a big part of it, but maybe you can explain how that process will work.
Yeah, so we have not done many searches for GMs in this team's history.
It's like the Steelers,
right? But even when I was in Tampa, we really only replaced our GM one time when I was there, and we didn't use a firm. We kind of knew who we were going through. This time around, we thought, you know what, we're going to have a lot of people come forward for this job because it's a job people want. I mean, period. There are so many good things with our organization, with our ownership, what's happening in the minor leagues and our prospects. It's also Nashville, and there's some cool things, and it's one of 32 jobs. We realized we didn't want to spend, hours every single day and, talking to everyone in the world. Let's bring in, someone that does this for a living. CA has many, many divisions. They're also our consultant on our TV contracts. They're managing some of our construction projects, through what we're doing in the building. So it's kind of a natural to go to their personnel side and bring them in. But truly, they'll organize what we're doing. They'll be, the receiver of everything. Every email I get, every text I get, I forward right to them. Barry will do the same thing. We've advised all of our owners and executives to do the same thing. And that's what they do. First thing, they gather them all. They'll wean down that group, initially with a fast call with all of us. Then you'll get it down to X number of people, wean it down again, maybe start some simple interviews, probably wean it down again, then start some live interviews. But having them organize it is a good thing. Having Nick Saban on the committee, I mean, gosh, the guy just builds winners, no matter where he's been at every single level. So it's really going to be fun to, watch him in those meetings. And then you have Michelle Kennedy's, her flair and her passion for what we do and her attention to detail. Chris Seagren, who's one of the minority owners that really assembled the group in 07 and 08 with a HR background, and he runs businesses as well. And then, Barry knows everyone that's out there. And then I think Bill and I are the slow kids at the table.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, hopefully he's not listening.
Sean, where this team is at, and it can go either way as far as this season. Playoffs may not. I'm sure when this decision was made in December, when Barry made the decision with you guys, was there a plan in place on when it does come out? Because we saw it happen across the street with the Titans. They fired their GM in the middle of the season. All of a sudden, their season go downhill. What were the conversations like? Because ultimately we talk about management, but the players, they loved Barry. So it's going to affect them in some way, especially with them being so close on that playoff border.
And they're not just close on playoff border. They're close together. I mean, it's really a cohesive group. Really, you travel with them, you see it. They're having fun right now. I think the big difference is we didn't fire our GM mid-season. Barry is our GM, period. Bill made that point a few times. We talked to the players earlier today, our coaches. So it's not causing any disruption there. I say that it's probably causing a little hey, what the heck? I love the guy. He's been the only GM in my career, or he was my early coach. But Barry has that type of personality and the relationship with the guys that when he says, I'm not going anywhere, I'm our GM, and Bill says it, and I reinforce it. And then Nick brings it to life, on the road. They feel really good about it because it's Barry's choice. They know some of the things that he's dealing with away from the office, away from the ice, and they recognize that, it's time for him, to step away. That said, he's stepping away-ish, because he's going to be here as our GM through the end of the season, if not beyond. If we're fortunate enough to hire a GM before the draft, they'll work really closely together to manage that draft, just like David and Barry did. And even next year, he's going to be a resource for that GM, for me, for Bill. I'm excited about that. Very unique people can do what he's trying to take on. But Barry has that skill set and the trust of the players, of the coaches, of all of us.
Well, one thing I was going to follow up with is what Bill Haslam said about his trust in. It looks like timetables-wise, he will be the GM that will make the big decisions coming up on March the 6th, where you have to make the trade deadline stuff, right? Either you're in, you're out on whatever player. But he trusts them that he's got the Predators' long-term interests in mind and not just self-serving, whatever. Because you could see in the past, if there was an outgoing GM, he might just ride it all, roll the dice, and do everything just for that season. But you got to think short-term and long-term.
Well, it's funny. I think we had the same conversation about David Poyle.
Yes,
I think we announced
3 years ago,
February 23rd, almost to the date, where we are. And the same question was, what's great about David is you can trust him not to go all in to try to get that cup, before he's done. Same conversation. Barry and David are cut from a very similar mold of I'm always going to do what's right for the organization today and long term. And as much as saying Barry's going to make the decision on what we do or what we don't do, he's not. The locker room's going to. The players are going to decide what happens based on where we are. And, tonight's game, the next 3 games are really important. Coming out of the break, really important games. If we find ourselves sitting in the playoffs, probably look at it slightly differently. If we're sitting outside of playoffs, a little bit differently. Not wholesale changes between the two, but a little different.
This was a big press conference where Bill Haslam really took a lot of leadership, I thought, and that was interesting. That's probably the first time that a lot of the Predator fans saw that. But you've been watching him, for the last couple of years, really, as he's worked his way up into this position. Tell us about that process, because I really felt like he looked like a leader today.
It's a really odd balance, I think, for any owner, but especially someone like Bill. Bill knows there are times when he should be the public face of the organization, but he doesn't need to be on things that aren't quite as important. But he recognizes there are certain things, GM decisions, coaches' decisions, hopefully CEO decisions, where he should put himself out there. And not just put himself out there, but be the MC, be the voice, the first voice and the last voice, because that's what he is. I mean, he's the one that made the investment. At the same time, I like what he's built, or has continued to carry on what Herb did and Tom before him. The GM's going to run, the hockey side, and business going to run the business side. We'll all work really closely together, and he's going to set that tone and the pulse that we're on, the direction we're going, challenge it here and there. But he doesn't need to be the public side of what we're doing every day. But when you have a big, big decision, he owes it to himself. He owes it to his other owners, all the staff, all the players, and most importantly, the fans, to say, this is what I'm thinking, this is why I'm thinking it, and this is why I'm here right now, because it's important.
Predators CEO Sean Henry has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick as we react to the news from earlier today that Barry Trotz announced his intention to retire as GM of the Nashville Predators. Sean, thank you as always for joining us. And, there's a game tonight.
A big game
Big
tonight,
one.
man. Get on out here, get your USA jersey. We all hate the Blues when we play them. So let's have some fun tonight. And please say hello to my good friend, Elliotte Friedman.
This may come as a shock to people, but it's a dad's trip for the St. Louis Blues.
It is incredible. I assume it's Vegas, us, Tampa, and probably Florida.
Yeah.
Lead the league every year in dads or moms trips, sponsor trips. And you just hope the dads took them out last night and had a great time with their lads.
Sean, thank you so much for
you
your
guys.
time. 615-737-1025. We will take your reaction all show long to the news that Barry Trotz intends to retire as GM of the Predators. He will continue to serve as GM until the organization identifies his successor. A comprehensive search for the Predators' new GM will begin immediately with the goal of finding the best possible candidates for the role. Trotz will assist with the selection of the new GM and will remain with the organization as an advisor through his contract term, the 2026-2027 season. Hey, I'm working here. 615-737-1025. Sportsnet NHL insider Elliotte Friedman, who broke this news this morning. He normally joins us on Thursdays. He's going to join us coming up next to talk about how this news is resonating around the NHL. Your reaction all show long. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. By the way, the Predators actually do play a game tonight. Blues at Predators at 7 p.m. Pregame at 6. Right here on 1025 The Game, we are reacting to the news that Barry Trotz intends to retire as Predators GM. And to help us discuss that further, the man who broke the news earlier this morning, our friend Elliotte Friedman, Sportsnet NHL insider. He normally joins us on Thursday, but he was kind enough to make time for us today. Elliotte, hi, how are you?
I will double the usual fee, Adam.
Good to know. Well, the check is in the mail. So your story landed quite heavily here in Nashville today, the news that Barry Trotz will step down as GM once a new GM is hired. So what has the reaction been around the NHL to Trotz's decision?
I think it was surprise. I'll give you a bit of a background. This first kind of came to me a bit last night, that there was something going on and that this was potentially happening. But I'll say this, and I think this goes through a lot of the way that it got handled today, that look, people can have opinions on how people what people do as in their professional career. Look, we all have good decisions, we all have bad decisions, whatever, but nobody is going to take any issue with Barry Trotz, the person. Like, nobody. So last night, as I kind of had an inkling that something was going on, the number one thing I really dealt with was people wanted Barry Trotz to do this his way. They wanted an opportunity for him to, make the announcement as much as he could the way he wanted to do it. And I think that says a lot about how people feel about him. So there was a lot of shock today. I don't think there were a lot of people who knew that this was potentially going to happen. And, when the story hit, Adam, there were a lot of people texting, what happened? What happened? What's going on here? So I think there were a lot of surprised people. And, in the press conference too, and I'll be honest, I didn't see all of it. I was working on some other stuff. But I guess there were some clips of him being really emotional, discussing his family. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people kind of take from it, is that when people aren't only going to talk about Barry Trotz as being one of the biggest people in the history of Nashville hockey, and people aren't necessarily going to talk about Barry Trotz winning a Stanley Cup as the head coach of the Washington Capitals. They're going to talk about Trotz, the person. And I spoke to someone today who played for Barry Trotz at the University of Manitoba, all those years ago. And they were like, what a great person. And I think that's what a lot of people think about.
Elliotte, you reported, and it was confirmed by the Predators, that they have engaged the CAA agency, Creative Arts Agency, to lead the organization's search for a new GM. And Bill Haslam is going to be a part of that. Trotz is going to be a part of it. Our previous guest, Sean Henry, President and COO, Michelle Kennedy, Nick Saban. They will all be a part of this GM search. So, we are not as familiar with who the next potential crop of GMs in the NHL could be. So who are some of the potential GM candidates around the NHL who we should be keeping our eyes on as the Predators search for Trotz's replacement?
Let me just say this, Adam. There is enormous interest in this job. Okay? I think that is actually what I should say first, is that I think that CAA are doing this search, they are going to be deluged with people interested in this. So, and I thought that would be the case as I was working on the story. And I think, and nothing that I have heard in the last 7 hours since this got out has made me change my opinion. I think the Predators are going to have a ton of interest in this job. So I think this, like the first thing, Adam, we have to talk about here is, and I think Bill Haslam positioned this in a very unique way. Like one of the things I was wondering was, are you looking to hire a general manager or are you looking to hire a president of hockey operations? Like for those of you maybe who are unfamiliar with this, the NHL has two different kinds of structures that tend to happen out there depending on the interests of the team. There's a president of I'm trying to think of, well, for example, in Vancouver, they have a president of hockey operations who's Jim Rutherford, and they have a general manager who's Patrick Alvin. And the way that or in Toronto, they used to have it that way with kind of a president of hockey operations, Brendan Shanahan, and a GM, Brad Treliving, and before him, Kyle Dubas. And the reason that some teams do that is they let the GM focus on the hockey, while the president of hockey operations is kind of the overseer who manages up to ownership. And generally, the president of hockey operations would have the final say. You guys had a system where it was Poyle with the power and then Trotz with the power, but there was no president of hockey operations. So one of the first questions I asked was, what are you doing here? And the answer, as I understand it, is that you're going to find the best person to say, that's our person, guy, woman, whatever it is, and then you're going to build around them. So I think that's very interesting. I think it's really interesting how that's being positioned by Bill Haslam and the Predators. Sorry, Derek, I think you're going to have a ton of interest. I think you're going to hear names like Shanahan, names like Mark Bergevin, people who've been general managers before. I think you're going to hear names of up-and-comers who could be first-time GMs. And some of the names, I'm missing names. Like I threw together some initial names, but I'm missing names, no question. Those are people like Ryan Martin, who's the assistant GM of the Rangers, Evan Gould and Jamie Langenbrunner, who are assistant GMs in Boston. Another name I kind of throw out there here and there because I think he will get a job eventually is going to be Sonny Mehta, who is part of Florida's staff. I think eventually he will get a job, but there's lots more. And I wouldn't be surprised, too, if there's some agents who throw their names at this. So, Adam, that's a small snippet, but there's going to be a lot more.
Boy, that was a small snippet. Can't wait to see the rest of it, man. Talk with Elliotte Friedman, 32 Thoughts podcast.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're fine.
Don't treat me like you used to treat blitzing linebackers, okay?
Not at all. How does this affect Coach Bruno? Because at the beginning of the season, his seat was a little warm. Now the team has started playing a lot better, so I'm sure the seat is cooling off a bit. But how does this affect the coach moving forward? Because the GM is going to be different next season. And will they look at him the same like Barry did?
I believe this. I think it's always up to the new manager. I think that, Brunette has another year, right? Like he's still under contract for next year, correct? Or
I believe that's
wrong
true.
About that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have to double check this. I should have checked this before I came on. I apologize for not. I think that whenever you hire someone, you are giving them the opportunity to say, do you want the current head coach or not? Now, I will say this, in most situations, I see change, but there have been situations before where I've been told don't assume anything. Like, again, I go back to Vancouver, and Mike Gillis, who used to run the Canucks, is probably another name that will get thrown out there too, because he was pretty successful in his time running Vancouver. When he got there, he inherited Alain Vigneault. And everybody was like, when Gillis gets in there, he's going to take over and he's going to want a new coach. That didn't happen. Gillis got the job. He sat down with Vigneault. Those were not always easy conversations. He told him some things are going to be done differently. And Vigneault later told me, he said, okay, I'm open to that, but I want some things done differently too. And they sorted it out, and they went to Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final together, and they also won 2 President's Trophies as the top team in the NHL before Vigneault was fired and they moved on. So my general default to this, Derek, is the coach is vulnerable, but there are situations where a GM has inherited a coach with an open mind, and it worked out okay.
He does have one more year on his contract.
Yeah.
We just looked it up.
There you
So Elliotte
Thank
Friedman
you
is
for
with
doing
us.
the research that I should have done, Willie.
We've got guys too. It's not
Yeah.
it's not us. But
You know what? I'll say this. Like, Barry Trotz was extremely loyal to Andrew Burnett, extremely loyal to him. And I would think that anyone who comes in, it probably would be different, but not, I wouldn't say it's an absolute guarantee that a new GM would come in and say, I can't work with this guy.
I would say too that in fairness to the decision as well,
Yeah.
the loyalty and all that, Andrew Burnett has done a heck of a job
Yeah.
to pull them out of the bottom to get them where they are.
I would say this, Willie, that I think there's a lot of people there who deserve a lot of credit. I think Burnett does, and I think the players do too.
Yes.
Because like that, I've talked about the closeness I've heard about your room. I would say this, that everybody there could have folded very easily, and they didn't.
So, Elliotte, that's why I was curious, your perspective on it was, everybody's asking why today, all of that stuff. Bill Haslam took a shot at it and said, we want to be transparent, but also we want to get I think the term he used was the fishing term. We want to put the fishing rod in the water early and maybe have the best crack at some of the best people. So what about that strategy to you? I don't recall any other hockey team coming out and doing it that way. And come to think of it, really, a lot of sports teams, I don't know if I've heard people come out and be as transparent about that part of it. So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say this. They're right. It is a bit unique. I think that a couple of things. Number one, don't forget that when you guys made the change the last time, the Predators, they announced it during the season. So there is a little bit of history with that. Now, that was a handoff from David Poile to Barry Trotz, but you'll remember it didn't get announced at the end of the year. So I'm used to the Predators doing things a little bit differently in that way. So I'm not as 100% surprised. I have a line I use: the surest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So you guys have done this before. That's number one. Number two, I think always in this league, things tend to get out. It's very rare, if you're going to make a change, that it stays quiet for that long. So that's number two. Number three, one of the things I heard today after the news got out was that Bill Haslam had begun to look around at, how does the NHL work? How do things happen here? He's done, to his credit, a lot of listening. And I think that when Barry Trotz and Bill Haslam had kind of talked about the future whenever they met last month in December, and they talked about that today, I think they both talked about that Haslam had kind of said, okay, this is what I've learned about how things work. And, again, you heard Trotz talk about his family today. I think it sounds to me like it's a lot about two guys who kind of looked at the future, and Barry Trotz said, this is how I'm thinking, and Bill Haslam said, this is how I'm thinking. And I think they just said, you know what? The best possible thing is to start moving on this. And, I think Trotz probably knew that Haslam was going to look around and say, okay, like Bill Haslam had some ideas about what he could do to make the organization better. And Barry Trotz said, you know what? I'm not here long term after next year. And so, like, part of me sees this as two people looking at the way they saw the world and saying, this is the best solution. And I believe this 1,000%. They wanted to do right by Trotz as a person. And I think that's why we are where we are today. And you know what? I'll say this also. I think that Bill Haslam is very comfortable with Trotz running the show while they look for a successor, because I think they feel that Trotz will do what's best for the organization and not's best for him. Like, you guys have all been around sports before. Sometimes when people feel that they need to survive or they're in trouble, they do things that may only benefit them. I think now that this is clear and it's all out in the open, Bill Haslam trusts Barry Trotz. Like, you don't have to worry about your legacy here. You just have to do what's right by the team. And I think Trotz will do that.
Elliotte, they mentioned today there are 3 assistant GMs and that they would all have the opportunity to throw their hat in the ring, basically. I'm curious, the one that has, I think, been the closest to being named a GM is Scott Nickel, who is a behind-the-scenes guy. He's a really popular guy. He was a feisty player for the Predators. I think there's probably a faction of the fans that wouldn't mind seeing the Predators go outside the family, but I'm curious your thoughts on Scott Nickel, who I think has been a finalist for some GM jobs recently.
Well, so has Jeff Kelty, right? And then
of course there's Brian Poyle. Those are the 3 that are all going to be, I think, qualified to at least try out for this one.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that they all will be given chances to show what they can do, right? I don't think there's any doubt that all of them will get a chance to present their case. I just think that one of the reasons I think this kind of got out there yesterday was because I think people began to wonder if Bill Haslam was guaranteed to go external, right? And so I think that right now, I just don't know how to handicap it, Willie, and I don't want to insult anybody who's there. I just think that there is going to be so much interest in this job, I don't know if I want to say it's going to be hard for someone internally to get it, but like, you have to look at it and say, the last time they did this, they passed the baton. This time they're not passing the baton. So I don't want to say it's impossible for someone internally to get it, but it's clear they want to hear from people outside before they make any decisions.
Sportsnet NHL insider Elliotte Friedman has been our guest on D, Mace, Vingan, and Donick. He normally joins us Thursdays at 5, but kind of broke some big news today. So we're glad that we had Elliotte Friedman on the program today. Elliotte, as always, thank you so much for your time. We'll catch up soon.
Before we go, is there anything I didn't answer that you want me to answer?
Not that I can think of. Willie, no. Derek?
Nope.
I think we got it covered.
Yeah.
All right. I just know sometimes on days like this today, people say to me, "Oh, I wish I would have asked you this." So I just want to I know radio. I don't want to screw up any commercial breaks. I've gotten killed for that stuff.
Well, okay. Well, Elliotte, real quick then. What about the Nick Saban part of this? He's going to be part of the committee. This is largely, what he does this kind of thing as well on outside of hockey, obviously, but that's also a unique thing about this, right?
I think it's really I think this is why he's kind of there, right? It's kind of when you guys had that press conference, sometimes I forget, not being in a college, I love college football, but I'm not immersed in it, how much power he has and how much people respect him. And what I think he's going to be there for, Willie, is to ask questions. Like,
Elliotte?
like winners know winners, right? Winners know winners. The Predators want to hear what he thinks about the process and the people they talk to.
Thank you so much, Elliotte. I know we're paying you double, so maybe we'll talk to you Thursday at 5. We'll see. We'll see.
We can still talk Thursday at 5.
Okay, that sounds great. We'll talk to you then. Thank you, Elliotte.
All right, take care, guys.
615-737-1025. All right. You've heard from Sean Henry. You've heard from Elliotte Friedman. Now we want to hear from you on Barry Trotz's announcement, the Predators' announcement today that Barry Trotz is stepping down as GM. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. By the way, quick breaking Titans news. Per Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, the Titans are hiring Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. So yet another person on the staff. He's wearing a hat in this picture, so I don't know if he's bald or not. I'll have to do the research during the break. But Gus Bradley reportedly being hired.
Google picks.
Yes.
It
Gus
looks like
Bradley.
he's bald. It
Yes.
looks
Gus
like it.
Bradley reportedly being hired
He's
as
a
the Titans.
bald.
Yes, we are all about the balds on this show. Gus Bradley, reportedly new Titans defensive coordinator. 615-737-1025. But your reaction on Barry Trotz coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution or some type of goal to shed some extra pounds, only to face disappointment. But I got some good news, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands that frustration of the cycle and or want to offer you a different approach to your weight loss. Okay, their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tender nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
Bill addressed this a little bit, but I just wanted to find out from you, why now? In the middle of the team's, push for the playoffs, why make this decision now? Why make this announcement now?
Well, I think we talked about it, I do the radio shows, I do that. We've been pretty transparent, and we want to get the best people. You look in this business right now, there's going to be a lot. This is a fantastic organization to work with. It's going to be it's going to be one of those jobs that everybody's going to want. You're going to get the best people, and timing is we want to have the pole in first if we're going to fish for someone. So that is the uniqueness of it, but that's the advantage of it as well. This business is a lot of times it's a June 30th league, as you know, as everybody in the hockey world is signed till June 30th type of thing. And it leaves you even more time. Instead of making a rash, quick decision, you're going to be able to do that over time, and you're going to get a complete view of all the candidates. And it's changing in the sport. You have hockey people, you have agents who are now in that role. You have maybe someone from another sport coming in. I think we're pretty open to everything, but we want the best person in this role.
That was Predators GM Barry Trotz on why now. Barry Trotz announcing his retirement. By the way, Barry Trotz still going to join us weekly here on the program. The expectation is he will join us Wednesday at 5 o'clock because we'll be here on Wednesday. We normally have him on Tuesdays, but Barry Trotz will continue to join DVD as the Predators transition to their next GM.
Can I ask? I'm just asking this question because y'all know
you can ask some
y'all
questions
been with me long enough. Y'all know how my brain works.
Oh, I know how it works.
Especially with things like this.
There are two things in your brain, Derek Mason: conspiracy theories and Hallmark movies. That's all you have space for.
Absolutely. So, as I'm listening to Barry, and he's talking about finding the best person for the job, and we know Elliotte has already said it. Hey, there are going to be a bunch of people, but then he's talking about, other influences, people from other sports, people from here, agencies now being a part of it. Is it me, or did it sound like I can't do that? What you're it's good, but I can't be a part because I'm old school hockey. I don't, as much as I respect and I see your vision, I can't, I'm going to bow out. That's what it seemed like to me.
Are you talking about ownership saying, here's the direction we want to take the franchise,
yes,
and Barry Trotz saying, I don't want to do that?
Not him saying, okay, I see it, I get it, I understand it, but maybe I'm not the guy because now other people are involved, and it's just not just hockey people. You got other people. How great Saban is great, and they talked about Saban, but Saban coming into another arena that he's not too familiar with. Will he get familiar? Absolutely. Will I think he do a great? Absolutely. But when you start having these outside people coming in, it may be great moving forward for you, but I got to bow out because as much success as I want to have with y'all, it may be better. Somebody else may be better suited for the job. Not that I don't think y'all are going to be able to get there, but I'm old school.
For what it's worth, Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, and Barry Trotz did say this morning at the news conference that this decision was not the result of a difference of opinion. I wanted to make sure I asked that question. I wanted to make sure this wasn't Barry Trotz, for example, saying it's time to rebuild, an actual rebuild, and Bill Haslam saying we're not interested, or vice versa. They claim there is no difference of opinion here.
I understand that, but while I'm listening, and it may just be because there has to be some type of difference where I need to retire. And okay, do you really want to? Well, yeah, because I need to spill. That's a difference of opinion, But I'm looking at it and I'm saying, like, man, like, is Barry telling us, like, I want them to do what they need to do, and I'm happy for the organization, but I'm not the guy that's should be leading the organization because of where I think it's going. And it may be the right way, and I believe it, but I'm not the guy that can do it.
Willie, how would you answer that question?
It was a little simpler for me in that I saw, or, I've known Barry Trotz for a long, long time. And you saw the emotion come across his face today twice when his family came up. And to me, he is clearly not a guy that is going to just, some Hollywood person. Yeah. Oh, you need to cry for this thing? Yeah, I can get myself to cry. Like he's not that guy, right? He is very authentic. And I think you could see his mind being split, how much he loves the game and how much he loves the family. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
When you travel and it's a grind and you miss all the time these visits. I've been with him on the road where he's showing me pictures of his grandson over here, his family over here. And I think he's conflicted, right, with how much he loves the job, but also, and his quote today was like, my family deserves my time at this stage of his life.
And that
so
could be,
I really think that is at the crux of this whole thing.
And that could be the disagreement. Like, okay,
he said you got to be all in.
Exactly. Moving forward, we need you to be. You need to spend more time here.
Yeah.
And he's like, I see where you're going, and I get, but I can't. And now it's like, okay, that's what I mean. So
you think
there
it's more,
is a difference of opinion.
So you think it's more of a personal difference of opinion, not a philosophical difference of opinion?
Yes.
Like,
and maybe
how to run the team.
It could be a little bit. It could be more of the other, but the other does. I think it's more family, but maybe the other does have a small part in it. But I'm not saying it's 50-50.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing he said today that I think we've heard in interviews on our station with us and even before, he said, hey, this GM thing is new to me, right? I think he's learned about the last 3 years what it takes to be a GM and how it is evolved. It used to be a lot of ex-coaches would become GMs, and maybe it was way, way back a little bit simpler. Maybe as he's taken to the job, he's learned how intricate it is and how much time it takes to really do it right. And he's also getting to a stage in life where, as he talked about today, there's a lot of important family stuff going on for him. And I think he wants to do the right thing.
615-737-1025. We see your calls. We see your texts. We'll get to them next. 615-737-1025. The Predators announced today that Barry Trotz is stepping down as GM of the Predators. He will continue to serve in that role until the franchise finds his successor. 615-737-1025. On the other side as well, I have one major suggestion for the Nashville Predators as they undergo this search for a new GM. To me, it may be non-negotiable. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game.
Hey, if you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve, and they don't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike and gear means to you and how much it's worth to you. So they will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Friedman and Houston, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Nashville, Tennessee. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team. So your favorite player will be on there, courtesy of Law Tigers and Music City Indian. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators host the St. Louis Blues. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5 The Game. The news of the day: Barry Trotz will be stepping down as Predators GM. He will continue in that role until his successor is found, but it was first broken today by our friend Elliotte Friedman, who joined us in the first hour, that Barry Trotz will be moving on as Predators GM. We want your reaction. 615-737-1025. As I said before the break, there is something that if I were a part of this GM search committee that I would be suggesting. But before I tell you what that is, let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com and welcome in Ryan in Mount Juliet. Ryan, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Adam, great questions with the press conference, especially the part about the rebuild. I'm glad you asked that. I want new blood. I don't want Brian Poyle. I like Scotty Nickel, but I want new blood. This organization needs new blood and not just bringing up somebody from the family like they've done multiple times now.
Thank you for the call, Ryan. And Ryan did lead me into what that non-negotiable is. As it says in the news release, this is a statement from Barry Trotz in the news release. Quote, "Lastly, I am happy that we intend to include assistant general managers Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian Poyle in the interview process. Each of them is a good man and has contributed significantly to our organization's past successes. I want to thank each of them for their work under me. I view Jeff, Scott, and Brian all as excellent candidates for this position, and I am confident they are all future GMs." And I will echo Trotz's sentiments. Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian Poyle, they are all good men. I have absolutely zero interest in any of them being the next GM of the Nashville Predators. As Ryan just said, fresh blood. That was my first thought this morning when this news broke. This is an opportunity for the Predators to go outside the family. Find someone with few to no ties to this organization and let that person breathe some life into this front office. Once again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian Poyle. Jeff Kelty has been a part of this organization since basically the beginning, right, Willie?
Jeff Kelty was in the very, very first training camp as a player. And
he's been in the scouting department and the personnel department for basically the existence of the organization. Scott Nickel, he's been with the organization now for several years. Brian Poyle, of course, here for about half of the Predators' existence in the front office. And, of course, the son of David Poyle. All good men. I've dealt with them all. They are all wonderful people. I have zero interest in any of them being the next GM of this team.
Why would you consider – this is my thought. Brian Poyle and Jeff Kelty, I definitely look at guys from the family. Those guys are Predator family through and through. No, I mean, literally in Brian Poyle's case, right? And Jeff, because he's been with them really since day one. Scott Nickel, I view as a little bit more of a mix. I do think he's been in a lot of different places. He's played for the Predators, but he's also played in a lot of other places. He's been other places. He's been here for a while. To me, he would be unique among those three, and I would consider him in a different category than the other two.
Okay, that's fair. I do think
you disagree with that.
No, I can be convinced that Scott Nickel is in a different category. I think
of the candidates, he will be a GM soon for somebody, and I think he's a heck of a hockey mind in my opinion.
And I know that the Predators are not necessarily concerned with how their fan base feels about this. Of course, they want the fans to be excited about the GM, right? Just like the Titans wanted fans to be excited about Robert Saleh and Mike Borgonzi and even Rand Carthon, right? But I do think it would be a tough sell for Scott Nickel. I hear your arguments. I can be convinced to change my opinion on Nickel specifically. But I do think that he has been in the front office long enough that Predators fans are going to have a harder time accepting that still if he is the next GM of the Predators.
Also, just sort of reading the room today, and I think Elliotte, when I asked him this question a few minutes ago, I think he read it the same way. And Adam, you were there. Derek, I know you were listening. I did get the sense that Elliotte did from Bill Haslam that they are sort of excited to kind of look on the horizon, look out into the hockey world and see what comes back to them, right? When they were talking about the three candidates who are internal candidates and very legitimate, all three of them candidates, you kind of read with the reaction, right? And I did get the sense that they're going to be thrown into a very, very large pool without any real advantage, right? Sometimes you can tell, hey, it's been brewing for a while. They like this guy. They're grooming this guy. I didn't get the sense that was the case in this.
Now, was Haslam a part of hiring Barry?
No, I think Bill Haslam was on the outskirts, maybe starting. I'd have to go back and look, but he was not a part of hiring Barry.
And I asked that because it's almost as if now it's his opportunity as an owner to see what's out there. It's almost like I'm finally a free agent. I didn't want to be, but it just happened, know, because Barry says I'm stepping aside.
Yeah.
But now it's almost like, okay, now I can get to see what's out there. I'm learning this sport. I really get to see what's out here. I get to talk to people. And this is his sort of way of, in a sense, being a free agent, finally.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Adam, we know that 3 years ago, Bill Haslam, I can't remember when he started to come into the picture, but we know now that he is first and foremost, he is the head guy out front. He showed that today. I thought that was very noticeable today, how much ownership he took in the press conference. Sometimes the person sitting there, he's not going to answer any questions unless they ask directly. But there were times he jumped in there to answer the question. And contrast that with the past chairman, Herb Fritsch, and then Tom Sigerman. They were never out front in a situation like this. So I do think Bill Haslam showed that it's going to be a little different under his leadership. And then you've got the Nick Saban, who he brought in this as well. So I do think that's going to be a part of it.
Scott Nickel, by the way, has been in the Predators front office since the 2013-14 season as director of player development. So perhaps I can be swayed on Nickel, but Jeff Kelty and Brian Poyle, I'm completely out on them as GM candidates. I think the Predators need a fresh perspective in the front office. To your point about Bill Haslam, I do want to commend him for everything you just said. And it's a low bar because the team across the river, the owner is nowhere to be seen. Well, she was at the news conference. She's not answering questions. We've complained a lot about Amy Adams-Strunk not facing reporters. I know that Bill Haslam, a lot more polished. He's had plenty of experience in these settings.
It's more of a strong suit for him than other owners, for sure.
But I do commend him for being there and taking the lead in this, answering questions, as you said, Willie, even interjecting on questions he wasn't specifically asked. So I do want to commend Bill Haslam.
Yeah, for that. Go ahead and say what happened today at the press conference. You called him Governor Haslam. He said, just call me Bill.
Well, Governor Haslam.
Okay. You know what? I was trying to show. I was trying to show respect. I was trying to show respect.
You were. There was nothing wrong with how you did it.
I've had that too. You brought him an apple, set it on the table.
When we first got around him some, we were kind of the same way. Our broadcasters, we were like, did we call him Governor Bill? And he, like he did with you today, he said, look, just call me Bill.
Now I have the green light. I will call him Bill from now on. But yes, I did call him Governor Haslam. I was just trying to be respectful. There was something that Bill/Governor Haslam said today that I did not like, which we will get to in the next segment. But your reaction, 615-737-1025. One texter says, the Saban thing is weird. Recently joined the team, and now Barry is leaving. Another texter says, the Trotz situation smells like the Mike Mularkey firing with the Tennessee Titans. Do you see any comparison?
Zero.
Between the two situations?
Zero of either one.
I mean, I could see how someone would think that, considering, sort of this timeline. But, I mean, Barry, that's one thing I can say, and I think we all can say, is Barry has been overly sort of honest he's been completely transparent, especially when he's come on air with us and talking about the team. So if he says that's what happened, then I got to believe Barry, you know. But I can see how people can, because I'm a conspiracy theorist too, so I understand it.
One texter says, Barry has not earned this hero's exit. He earned the praise in 2014 when he was let go as coach. But this is different. Trotz took on this job as a personal challenge despite having no managerial experience. He was given the job with no real external search, probably, under the assumption that he was in it for the long haul. Now that the going is tough, he has decided to walk away. The process that led to his hiring, and this dates back to John Hines' hiring process too, is proof that the Predators' way is not serious for a major organization.
That's a lot right there. I would say that the first part of what he said was correct. I think Elliotte used the term pass the baton. There's no question that they saw an opportunity to get Barry Trotz back in this organization. They valued him in a huge way. They trusted his hockey mind. And, yeah, they handed him the job when he had never been a GM before. There's no doubt that was part of it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the other parts, I think, are way, way off base. The John Hines thing, I don't think has – they fired – they needed a coach. They fired Peter Laviolette. They needed a coach. The next game was, 2 days away? They were coming back from California.
Yes.
It's not like a football search where you go through have a search firm like they're doing here. They had to have a coach.
Yeah.
So if I recall correctly,
the process, it was 48 hours or something like that.
If I recall correctly, Hines' news conference was on the morning of his first game as
yes,
Predators
he barely
coach.
met the team.
Right.
Firing's in the middle of the season. That's a whole nother thing. But I don't think the reason what he's saying, Barry Trotz bowing out now because he can't handle the fire or whatever. That's not. I'm not subscribing at all to that narrative at all. That's not the reason he's doing this.
Drew from Mount Juliet says, "Do we wait to sell and let the next GM make that decision?" Well, it doesn't sound like a new GM is going to be in place by the NHL trade deadline, which is March 6th. So
I would say that there's almost zero chance. Basically, next to zero.
I would.
I might even go out there and do the Animal House 0.0. Barry Trotz is going to be making the decisions for the trade deadline.
Yes,
there's no way they'll turn around this search.
And one question I did have today is: does that change the approach to the trade deadline? It sounds like Barry Trotz is going to approach the trade deadline the way he's been planning to approach the trade deadline all along. He said today during the news conference what he's been telling us, that he's not going to dismiss anything out of hand. The team is out of the playoffs right now. They're in the mix, but they are out of the playoffs right now. He is not going to disregard any potential offer. He reiterated that today. So I'm not expecting the approach to the trade deadline to change. Joel said he did say the game is changing on and off the ice. He mentioned AI, etc. But overall, it sounds like a family matter. And that is one thing I will say. You could tell how much this decision weighed on Barry Trotz. Mm-hmm. He got really emotional in the news conference. He capped it off. Chris Harris asked the question that got the waterworks flowing a little bit from Barry Trotz. He said, "I love this game. I love my family more."
Yeah.
And that is what the Predators are saying is the impetus for this decision.
Let's go back to the texter's question, though. It's a good question because I think it's a central thing is you've got this. Let's assume that it's going to go outside of the family, right? So you have the unknown of who the next general manager is going to be. If you could magically consult the next general manager and say, hey, how do you want it to be, when you come in? What do you think they should do between now and March 6th? That would be something that the new GM would probably want to know, right? But he's not going to know. It's up to Barry Trotz what's going to happen. But at the same time, you had Bill Haslam say, he trusts that Barry Trotz will do what's right for the organization and not just selfishly, let's throw all our eggs in this basket for this year. Because Barry Trotz has been very measured. He knows that they still are a little bit of an underdog. They've closed the gap. They've gone from being a zero chance What was it, 0.1 or something at one point?
Around there.
Maybe even 0.0. It's when they were 6-12-4. I don't know that they showed up on the meter of probability, right? But now they've gone from that to what I would say they've gone to long shot. Now they're a underdog with a legit shot, but still they would need another 8-1-1 kind of run, right? To overtake. Now they do play a lot of the teams in the Pacific on the other side of the Olympic break, where they will go head to head with a lot of teams they're competing with. So is it a legit shot? Yes. But is it a good shot? No, they're still an underdog, and he said as much.
Sport Logic, by the way, has the Predators as of this morning with a 19.9% chance of making the playoffs.
So that's not nothing.
It's something.
And if they went 8-1-1, I guarantee you that would shoot up. That's basically what happened 2 years ago, right? They went from probably right around that 19 point whatever to 75-80% when they went 16-0-2. But I don't know that you could count on that again. But could they go on a run? They could, but there's not. How many games are there left between now and the deadline?
I have that number for you. Three before the Olympic break, 8 before the deadline.
So they're okay. So 8. So that's we probably won't know, but we'll have. But every game paints the picture a little closer, right?
Yes, and despite all of the winning that the Predators have done in collecting points, they had 4 out of 6 points on this road trip. We know how well they played from around Thanksgiving through the middle of January. They've hit a bit of a slump, 2-3-2 in their past 7 games. Despite picking it up significantly in points percentage, they're still 26 out of a 32-team league. Like, they made up ground, but they're still.
But you're leaving out that it's way different in the West, the East. The East is way better than the West, so that's a little misleading in terms of their playoff chances. The good part about that is, if you decide to sell, you're already starting at around 25th, 26th, and it wouldn't be as hard to slide down or at least get some lottery stuff. So it's not a bad situation to be in.
I interrupted you. Did you have a thought?
I think I forgot.
Okay, but let's get back to the
right, we were going
the future
to break anyway,
GM.
so
Right?
Sorry.
The future GM might be sitting there going, "Hey, if I got that job, man, I would break it down." Or he might have a strong opinion of I'd break it all the way down, or I'd have somewhere in the middle, or heck, whatever. I believe in Roman Josi, whatever. I think that's unlikely, right? There's going to be some retooling on some level that's going to have to be done for the new person. The question is on what level. So what I think is important is Barry Trotz has not made one move since he's been there to mortgage the future. That's a fact.
You are correct.
He has not traded one future asset to try to improve the team now. He has done nothing other than he traded traded a 6th round pick to get Jason Zucker and
traded
a
4th round pick for Eric Holla. But you
had to have a center.
Right. Your point is valid. That your point is they haven't spent a 1st round pick to go get somebody to try to win.
So it's not like the person's going to inherit a complete dry cupboard where he's got to start from scratch and said, boy, they have done a lot they've got this whole thing that's piled up that I've got to start from scratch. The foundation has already been laid for a retool. It's just a matter of how extreme you want to go with the retool.
Right. The Predators, for example, I guess it's now this year because it is 2026. The Predators have their 1st round pick. They've got 2 2nd round picks, a 3rd round pick, 2 4th round picks, 3 5th round picks. The following year, 2027, at the moment, the Predators have 4 3rd round picks. So they still have a ton of picks, which can be used to either draft players or trade for players. 615-737-1025. But you are right, Willie, in terms of making trades the way that David Poyle did when this team was really in it, right? Trading a 1st round pick for Ryan Hartman, for example. Barry Trotz has not done that as GM of the Predators. 615-737-1025. One texter, by the way, to pat myself on the back, says, Adam, I listened in at noon. I was really impressed by your courteous conduct and salutation with the governor. Your conduct, you conduct yourself a cut above many of your colleagues. Well, thank you, texter.
Hey, all right.
Thank you, texter. I did not have that text planted, by the way. 615-737-1025. There is something that Governor Bill Haslam said today that I did not like. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Why don't we give away some tickets, shall we? If you would like a pair of tickets to see Trevor Noah at the Ryman Auditorium on Tuesday, February 10th, so 1 week from tomorrow, be caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Caller number 4 will win a pair of tickets to see Trevor Noah, formerly of The Daily Show, at the Ryman Auditorium on Tuesday, February 10th. Call now, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. David James is back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We are reacting to the news that broke this morning that Barry Trotz is retiring as Predators GM. He will continue to serve in that role until the franchise finds his successor, I should say. CAA, Creative Artists Agency, has been tapped to lead the organization's search for the next GM. Bill Haslam will be a part of that search. Trotz will be a part of that search. Sean Henry, Michelle Kennedy, Nick Saban. So a lot of people involved in finding the next head of the front office for the Nashville Predators. But there is one thing that Governor Bill Haslam said today at his news conference that I did not like. And if you've been listening to this show or Preds Insiders or any show on our station for the past couple of years, you know how I feel about the direction of the franchise. I have said it this way. The Predators will not get better until they allow themselves to get worse. And what I mean by that is I think the Predators are long overdue for a traditional rebuild, which means some lean years probably, not making the playoffs for a long time, hopefully a shorter amount of long time, but a long time nonetheless. So today, with the opportunity to ask Bill Haslam, as the owner of the team, how open would he be to a rebuild if the next GM said, Bill, this is what we have to do to get this team back to being a true Stanley Cup contender? Here was his response.
The GM we hire is going to be responsible for deciding, here's what kind of hockey we want to play. Okay. And then their job is going to be to drive that all the way through the organization. I don't know enough to decide what kind of hockey we're going to play. And then that person is going to have to decide, do I like what we have? Can we build from here? Do we need to, to look at the assets we have? And they need to make that decision. We're going to hire somebody again that's strong enough to A, determine direction, and then B, when we decide on that direction, make sure we've vertically integrated it all the way from here to how we draft, to how we develop people, to how we're playing in Milwaukee, the whole deal. But that'll be something that they decide. We're obviously in a position right now, as Barry started out, like, hey, we'd love to throw out November. If so, we'd be right in you'd look at us as one of the best, 10 teams in the league. Unfortunately, they don't let you throw months away. But I like this team. I like how they're playing. And we have some great hockey players. I like the way they play together. Our fans, I think, are enjoying it. So to say that we're going to scrap all this and totally start over, I don't think is going to be the right approach.
Yeah, that last part I didn't like. Now,
Adam.
Yes.
Really.
What?
Okay, make your point.
Go ahead.
Can I say something before y'all do this? At the beginning,
what was wrong with what he said?
I didn't say. He said at the beginning. He said, "Listen,
it's up to the next
GM will determine after looking at the roster if we should either tear it down and go that way, or can we proceed." But him as an owner, he may think, well, maybe that's not how I want to do it. But y'all are the hockey people.
The answer
So
was
y'all
good.
do it.
The answer was
So
good
what was
until
wrong
that
with
last
it?
part. The last part.
But he
already
on the
said that
hockey
it's
people.
not up to
Yes.
him. It's up to the next guy.
Exactly. He's leaning on the hockey people.
But it made me feel that maybe if it's presented to him, that he won't like that idea.
Well, he said, but why at this point when they have been? Would you agree that since Barry Trotz took over, we just got done talking about it, he has not traded a single future asset, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, any high-level prospects to try to get better in the short term.
Yes.
They have been retooling for 3 years. They've already laid a foundation. They already have a farm system that is fairly well stocked.
But what is it missing? An
Okay,
accelerator.
Yes, that's true.
And how do you get accelerators?
You win the lottery.
Yes, and how do you win the lottery?
You like the Islanders, that you get extremely lucky in the lottery pick.
So you just want them to trade all their good players
But
away.
how could you possibly go all the way down? Like for several years at this point, you don't need to do that. Like if they sunk down this year and got a high crack at it, that might be exactly what they need, honestly.
Right. If you do it right,
But why would anybody want to sign up? Why would an owner want to say, yeah, I would love to have 6, 7, 8 years of being at the bottom? Like, that's not ideal. You don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to do it.
If you do it right, you can turn a team around quickly.
What's doing it right?
What's quickly?
And what's doing it right?
What's doing it right? Okay, let me answer both. Okay, whose question should I answer first?
Whichever one. It don't
Okay.
matter.
How long or how short? I mean, the Montreal Canadiens were in the COVID Stanley Cup final, and they made the playoffs last season. They've made some really shrewd moves, both in drafting and trading. They've got a young nucleus with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Lane Hudson and Ivan Demidov, and that team looks like it's ready.
Ready for?
Challenging for a championship.
You think that team's challenging for a championship this year?
It doesn't have to be this year specifically, but don't the Canadians look like a team that's going to be in the mix?
They've done a good job.
Yes.
You are leaving out in 2020. Was that the year 2020 or 2021?
Yes.
When they made the final.
Yeah.
That was kind of unique.
It was.
They had not been a very good team, not a real good team in the years prior to that. So they were already going away from the Carey Price stuff. That was a little bit of a last hurrah, came back up unexpectedly. I'm not even sure they had a winning record that year, if you include the overtime losses.
It was a Predators 2017-esque type run.
Not even close.
You think it was more improbable?
The Predators were a playoff team year after year after year before they made the run in 2017. They had been building, and they had been a solid playoff team. The Canadians were not a playoff team year in and year out leading up to that year.
Right.
That was a little bit of a blip.
I understand
a spike.
that. Another team that's recently undergone this. And we talked about this with Elliotte last week, the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins missed the playoffs last year, and as Elliotte acknowledged, they dealt with some major injuries.
Right.
That sunk them a little bit, but they sold Brad Marchand.
Right. Okay. But that's not a full rebuild. You're talking about breaking it down for 5 to 7 years. The Bruins have never done that. The Bruins retooled, and they hit it big. They've done a very good job of bouncing back. To me, that's closer to what the Predators are facing, and the Islanders would be the other one that dipped. They've been sort of borderline, first round exit a lot, similar to the Predators. They hit it big with the lottery. They retooled. They traded Brock Nelson last year. To me, the Islanders and the Bruins would be more of a similar situation to the Predators than the full rebuild that we're talking about.
Okay, let me
because you're what you're talking about is as we've documented, a 5 to 10 year commitment.
Let me rephrase my argument.
Okay.
Let me rephrase my argument.
We're going to find common ground here, Adam.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
And I am open-minded.
Because I am in agreement with you on the Bruins, the retool thing. That to me is what you're facing. And they've already been, I continue to argue, even though they made the playoffs 2 years ago, they've been doing this for 3 years.
The Predators
already been retooling.
The Predators need to be open-minded. Okay, let me give you an example. Here's something that I am hoping that Barry Trotz is going to do. The Boston Bruins last year, keep in mind the players I'm going to mention play different positions. The Bruins traded Brandon Carlo, one of their top defensemen, to the Toronto Maple Leafs for, among other things, a conditional first-round pick and a young forward prospect by the name of Fraser Minten. Fraser Minten is 21, 22 years old, playing second-line center for the Boston Bruins, was just named the NHL's Rookie of the Month for January. 8 goals, 14 points in 14 games. You can get that type of return for Ryan O'Reilly. And Barry Trotz has said for the past year that he is treating Ryan O'Reilly as if he has trade protection in his contract. He wants to do right by Ryan O'Reilly. If he's going to make a trade involving Ryan O'Reilly, he wants Ryan O'Reilly's blessing before he makes that trade. I don't think that should be the case anymore. I think that if the best offer comes from a team that Ryan O'Reilly doesn't want to go to, too bad. Ryan O'Reilly, if you can get a return similar to that, a young 21, 22-year-old player who's ready to play in the NHL and make an impact, I don't care if it's a team that Ryan O'Reilly doesn't want to go to. he needs to go there. So I'm hoping that Barry Trotz, he's been open about Ryan O'Reilly. His quote to us last week about, are you ruling out trading him? That's made the rounds nationally. I've heard them talk about it on Sportsnet, TSN, everywhere. I'm really hoping that Trotz will decide to do what's best for the organization, even if it means it's not the best thing for Ryan O'Reilly.
You got a rebuttal, Willie?
The only thing I would think is different about the Bruins last year is they knew they weren't going to make the playoffs last year. They had some guys hurt. I think Charlie McAvoy was one that was out for a long time. So it's a little easier for them to make the retool move than it is here. And I think I would bundle this in with what Bill Haslam said. I think Bill Haslam, like anybody else, when a team's playing well, as the Predators have been for a couple months now, it's intoxicating a little bit. Yeah, they've had some dramatic wins. They've had how many comeback wins? It's been fun. And so it's hard to sit there and go, yeah, this has been a blast, but I'm busting this up. Especially when you're the owner. I don't think you want to kill that momentum. So I think it's harder than you think to just be that, take the emotions out of it when you're watching every day do what they're doing. And at the same time, I agree. I know what you're saying, Adam, and I think there's a lot of validity in what you're saying. You have to take the emotions out to a degree to make the best possible decision. I'm just saying it's not easy. And Ryan O'Reilly, as we've said, is not a pending free agent. He's a guy that would be around next year. So you could punt it for a year and still enjoy the benefits of everything he brings every day, which is a lot. And there's value in keeping him as well as value for getting back. Minton's doing a nice job. They made a couple of very smart trades, the Bruins did, but it was a little easier for them because they knew they weren't going anywhere last year.
If I recall correctly, they were only a handful of points out of the playoffs last year when they made those decisions.
But Marchand was concussed.
Understood.
McAvoy has been out most of the year. They had a lot of stuff that was not going their way.
Yes.
Swayman was having a bad year. Like that, I think there was a lot of things pointing to this is not our year.
615-7.
Not that I think this is the Predators' year, but I think it would be a great story if they, like I've said, I could be in the minority here. I think coming from the bottom to make the playoffs would be a good season.
But as we've discussed, again, I am trying to take the emotion out of it, and I'm trying to play the numbers here. As I said, the Predators have a roughly 20% chance of making the playoffs. They're only, 4 points out of the final wild card spot in the Western Conference, but they have a 20% chance of making the playoffs. It depends on which analytics site you look at. And wild card teams, we talked about this last week. Wild card teams in the wild card era, which is since 2014,
they would be. Let's be honest, they'd be a huge underdog in the first.
And
round.
I am
bigger than they were in 2017.
And I am unwilling to sacrifice potential trades for, hey, it's been a great story, and if they make the playoffs, we'll see what happens. I am unwilling to make that sacrifice. 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the Predators' direction after hearing from Bill Haslam, Barry Trotz, and Sean Henry earlier today. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and if you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve, and they don't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800-LAW TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Friedman and Fuson, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Ave South, Nashville, Tennessee. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers and Music City Indians. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
I don't think they can do it.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. A spirited debate about the direction of the Predators franchise. You know, I'm of the mind that I would be okay. Well, first of all, let's stop. We've heard enough of what I have to say. Derek had a good Derek had a good question. Derek had a good question.
Oh man.
And we actually did talk about this. On one of the days both of you were out a couple of weeks ago. I had this conversation with Connor New. You were wondering if this fan base can handle what I am calling for. A true rebuild. And oftentimes, true rebuilds mean multiple years of not making the playoffs, multiple years of being at or near the bottom of the standings, with the hope, and I know that's the key word, the hope that in one of those years you strike big and get one of those accelerators, as Barry Trotz likes to call them. We've brought up Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. San Jose, the Sharks have been going through some lean years as of late. But if Macklin Celebrini, and he looks like one hell of a player. I mean, people in the league are comparing him to Sidney Crosby at his age. If Macklin Celebrini leads the Sharks back to consistently contending for the Western Conference, as they were for a long time, I think a lot of Sharks fans will say it was worth it.
But they weren't where the Predators were.
Why are
when
you
they
laughing?
started the rebuild.
because you sat here, you said, enough of me talking. Derek, tell everybody how you feel, because it was really good what you were saying.
Is that your question, though? Because I think it's a good question.
No, it's funny to me because Adam kept talking.
I did keep talking. That is true.
But he was in his groove, so I was like, fine, it's good. But no, yeah, in a sense, that's, because I look at it from this standpoint. I think we have, and it's no secret, I think we have a bigger base of football fans here than we do, whether it's the Titans or somebody else, than we do like hockey fans. And when we talk about a rebuild, like Adam's describing a true rebuild, I think in some people's mind, they think, oh, football or basketball. And yeah, we may miss it for a season, but we're right back, because the NFL prides themselves on parity. So they want everybody to be 8-8, which they can't be anymore, or 9-7, 9-8, 9-7. But it's harder and it takes longer to do it in hockey. And I wonder if, like Nashville fans, like all of them, because they all love the team, are y'all really ready for that? Because it may be a year or two, but then we talked about the Red Wings and other teams, the Blackhawks. It's taken them almost a decade to get their team back to relevance. So hockey fan, are y'all really ready for that? Because that could happen as well.
And this fan base, Willie, as we have discussed, this organization has never done that before. The leanest years this organization had were the expansion years, and the expansion draft in the late 90s, a little bit different than the expansion draft for the Vegas Golden Knights, right?
Sure.
Outside of that, the Predators, they've missed the playoffs a couple years here and there, but they have been consistently in the playoff picture for most of the franchise's history, I would say. So Predators fans have not had to live through that, like what you're seeing in Chicago since they won all of the Stanley Cup championships, and in San Jose, and in Buffalo, and in Detroit right now, even though Detroit's having a great season. But it's been a decade since they made the playoffs. Like, you're not...
10 years.
Yes.
They've gone 10 years. Think about the mighty Red Wings for all those years. They were the gold standard. They have gone 10 years without making the playoffs. And they finally look like they're gonna make it this year. Can they win? I don't know, but it looks like it's finally. It took a long, long time. 10 years. I can tell you, I would not want to do that unless I had to do it. And I do think that's an important point, Adam. Some of these teams that chose, quote unquote, chose to do the full rebuild, they did it because they had no choice. They had no other choice. They were out, and they had no alternative. I think this is why it's a crossroads for the next GM, is to take it all the way to the bottom. You would have to do that in stages because of all the assets that they have.
Right.
So I think the perfect storm would be to continue along the path that they're on, retool, see where it goes, and avoid the 5 to 10 year abyss if you can.
The one thing that's of critical importance, if you take on the retooling mode like Boston has, for example, you've got to be willing to trade your top players, and you've got to have a personnel department with really good eyes on these prospects, right? Like I mentioned the Brandon Carlo trade between Boston and Toronto. Yep. You listen to Toronto radio right now, they're talking about how that Brandon Carlo trade is one of the worst trades the Maple Leafs have made in a very long time, because they gave away a 21-year-old forward who's playing second line center for the hated Bruins and playing well. Like that is a key part of it. You have to be able to find those young diamonds in the rough, so to speak. The Montreal Canadiens, their captain, Nick Suzuki, who I think is going to be a perennial Selke Trophy finalist. He is outstanding. He's going to the Olympics. He was part of a trade with Vegas for Max Pacioretty. You've got to find those players. You have to identify those players. So when you are Barry Trotz right now and you are looking to trade Ryan O'Reilly or Steven Stamkos if he wants to go somewhere, you've got to find those players. That is the key to making the retool work, is you've got to find those young 20-something players who are NHL ready. And that's hard to do. Some teams have tried that and have struck out. They haven't found the right players, but you have to be able to do that. You know, another team I'll use as an example, and this is an extreme example perhaps, Arizona/Utah. Utah, and before they were the Mammoth, they were the Arizona Coyotes. You know everything that was going on there. Terrible ownership. They were playing in a college hockey rink for a couple of years, but they are really picking it up. I think the Mammoth are a bet to make the playoffs, a guarantee to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be that first wild card team in the Western Conference. And man, oh man, would I love a Logan Cooley or Dylan Guenther on my team. And really the only way you get those players is by being bad enough. So maybe you don't have to tear it all the way down, but you have to put yourself in a position for at least a couple of years where you are picking in the draft lottery and you have a shot at one of those players. Maybe the retool works. It's not a guarantee. Neither is truly rebuilding. But the Predators have tried a lot of different ways to stay competitive, and to their credit, they have for a long time. But I think now you're starting to see, hey, maybe a different perspective, maybe a different avenue, maybe worth going down.
Okay, let's to me, the Arizona thing is not a comparison because they had no choice. They had no money. They had terrible ownership. They were spinning their wheels. They had to sell everything off that they had. So the Utah ownership benefited greatly from all of the bad years in Arizona where they compiled a lot of assets that are finally coming together. So I don't think you wouldn't want to recreate that track. The Islanders is an interesting one. How many points do you think Matthew Schaefer is worth in the standings? Because the Predators were in the lottery last year. They had a lot better chance of getting Matthew Schaefer than the Islanders did.
Yes.
And the Islanders got him through a huge stroke of luck. And Matthew Schaefer is, would I be off base by saying he's worth at least 8 points in the standings with what he's doing historically? Nobody's ever, he might have the best 18-year-old season by a defenseman in NHL history. That's Bobby Orr.
Right.
That's Phil Housley.
Right.
Like, he's up with the greatest of all time. And he has taken a franchise that was, would you say, not that far from where the Predators are and have been the last couple years. You know, wild card or barely missing. Is that fair to describe the Islanders roster?
They're stuck in the middle, like the Predators have been in recent years, I would
But
say.
they've had their moments, right? They're not that far removed, like the Predators, from making playoffs a lot.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of difference, I think. Schaefer is an accelerator. So the Predators this year might well get in the lottery and get, but that was a huge stroke of fortune
yes.
for the Islanders there. But the Predators were in the lottery last year, so they've already gotten one guy that they hope will be a really good cornerstone for them. They could be there again. But that is different than saying we're going all the way to the bottom, like the Blackhawks, like the Sharks, like some of these extreme cases where we're going to sink it all the way down so that we have a high first-round pick for the next 4 or 5 years. That's a different path. And I'm saying I don't think the Predators have to go down that path.
615-737-1025. We see your phones. We see your texts. Hold on. We will get to them coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are reacting to the news today that Barry Trotz is retiring as Predators GM. He will maintain that role until his successor is hired. Barry Trotz will continue to join our program throughout hockey season, despite this news. The plan is for him to join us on Wednesday at 5 because we'll be here Wednesday for the Predators game against the Minnesota Wild. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. They continue to get the message out for 2026 that the mortgage rates have gone down, and therefore you're in a position to improve your monthly budget by just getting a lower mortgage rate. Just call the folks at Loan Pronto and see what they can do for you, because they could probably save you some money, especially if you came in with your current situation maybe the last year or two where the mortgage rates were higher. So jump on this opportunity and call Loan Pronto and let them pitch you on what's going on with their situation, because they're producing the lowest mortgage rates in years, sometimes as low as 4.89%. So make sure you get on that. Loan Pronto has been helping people at all. And also make sure that you realize that they can help you with your home's equity. If you need some money out of your home's equity to pay off some high interest loans like credit card bills or things like that, they can help you with that as well. And they've done some great things for some families and put them on a really good track for 2026. All you got to do is call 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com and get that free instant home appraisal. You might even skip your next 2 house payments you go through this, and you're going to be in better financial footing. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 166-1781, APR for well-qualified buyers, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators will host the St. Louis Blues. Puck drop at 7. Pre-game at 6 right here on 102.5 The Game. Of course, we are reacting to the major breaking news this morning that Predators GM Barry Trotz will retire as GM of the Nashville Predators. He will continue to serve in that role until the franchise identifies his successor. News conference held earlier today. Barry Trotz, Sean Henry, Bill Haslam. Sean Henry joined our program at the top of the show. Elliotte Friedman, who broke the news, joined us at 3:20. If you missed those conversations, they are now up wherever you get your podcast. But we have a few listeners who have been waiting patiently on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So let's get to them now. Scott in Hendersonville. Scott, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, Adam, I'm just remain not with you in your quest to turn us into Buffalo. I cannot disagree with, much of what you say more. And I think, you're talking about trying to take emotion out of it. I think you are kind of guided by a different kind of bias, the change for change's sake bias. And it was evident in your comment about the front office. The front office needs new life breathed into it as if, or I don't know if it was the exact quote, but like it was stale and dead already, which there's no evidence of that. And, the idea that, I would not be happy if David Poyle's son wound up running the team, but the idea that Scott Nickel is not a serious candidate, he's the kind of guy that other organizations would probably want to interview. He's a serious candidate, and I think there'll be lots of other serious candidates from around the league. That Willie and D-Mace, I don't know if you guys were around. It was about a week ago. Adam wants to trade not only O'Reilly, he wants to trade O'Reilly and McCarron and Holla.
Yep,
so
I did say that.
At center, we would have Tyson Jost as our number one center, and our number two center would be a guy that was just demoted. And our number 3 and number 4 centers would be probably Jost and Svechkov double shifting. Because there's literally nobody else.
They would be thin.
Yes.
It does zero. It makes zero sense for the organization to trade Michael McCarron and get yet another second or third round pick and still carry all these $8 million contracts. You're going to tear it down. You've got to get rid of the $8 million contracts, not get rid of the Michael McCarrons to add yet another third round pick. There's a certain point where those middle round picks do you absolutely no good. There's a maximum number of people you can have under contract as an organization. And there's a maximum amount of ice time you can give to prospects. You can't develop 150 players at once. So, that's just a non-starter. But, Willie, I have a small bone to pick with you. I agree with much of what you said, but, you made the comment that, the Preds need to go on like an 8-1-1 heater. And I don't think that's the case. If you look at it, step back and look, what did we think this team was in October of 2024? We thought this was a top 3-4 team in the West. We thought this was a 100 plus point a year team, coming off those signings, and it didn't work out. You have to look at last year as an anomaly. You had everybody on the roster practically have career worst years at the same time, and except for Forsberg and O'Reilly, and they had subpar years, average to subpar years for them.
Scott, not to interrupt, but can you get to your point before we go?
Yeah. Well, Adam, you restated your points about 8 times, but
I know, but we have a show to do. That's all.
For the last 10 weeks, this has been a team that's about at a 66% point percentage. They don't need the 8-1-1 run. They continue doing what they're doing. They are who we thought they were going to be in October 24. It clicked. It clicked around Thanksgiving, and this team is what we thought it would be. And all they need to do is just keep doing what they're doing. They don't need a huge streak, and they will be in the playoffs. And we shouldn't worry about losing to Colorado in the first round.
Thank you for the call, Scott. I do appreciate the call. I appreciate you waiting as long as you did to make that point. Here's one thing, before we get to the other calls, here's one thing that Willie and I talked off air about. I understand his points. We differ on how the Predators should proceed. There are teams that have not completely torn it down, who have taken a slight step back and then got right back to being competitive again. The argument for me on doing a true rebuild is, in order to find those franchise-altering players, it's probably going to require you to be bad enough for long enough that you have as many shots as at the number 1 overall pick as you can. I know that there is a lottery in the NHL, and you can have you can have the best odds to have the number 1 overall pick and not get it. Willie, what were the odds the Islanders were going to have the number 1 pick in the draft before the draft lottery? 2%?
They maximized and moved up the full 10 spots.
Right. So you can be the San Jose Sharks or the Chicago Blackhawks and not get the number 1 overall pick. But you have to put yourself in position to at least have that opportunity. Because I've seen some people on the text line, for example, mention how stocked the prospect pool is. You heard Sean Henry mention that earlier today, as well as on our show. And the Predators have built up a solid prospect pipeline, but it's missing that crown jewel. And with all due respect to the likes of Brady Martin and Riker Lee and Cameron Reed and other players in that mix, I don't see any of those players being the types of players who drag this team back into contention. I don't see them on the same wavelength as Celebrini or Bedard, or if you go back even further, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid. I mean, Jack Eichel was a number 2 overall pick, but you get my point. I think the Predators they desperately need one of those players. They desperately need one of them. And I think the only way that they can put themselves in position to do that is to take that true step back, which may mean, missing the playoffs for 2-3 years in a row and being near the bottom of the standings. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think this fan base is mature enough to handle it. Derek, I told you that a few weeks ago, and you laughed at me. I think this fan base is mature enough to handle it. When this team was the worst team in the league the last week in November, crowds were great, I thought. Fans loved this team. Would it stink coming to games with a greater than not chance of losing? Yeah. But I know how much y'all love this team. And I hear what Scott's saying as well. But here's the thing. When I hear Scott say those things, and Scott, I mean this with all due respect, because we do appreciate you listening. It sounds to me like Scott's okay with mediocrity. And I'm not okay with mediocrity.
No, I think Scott thinks that their chances of winning this year are better than I think they are, based on what he said with his bone to pick with me. But I do think it would be a very bitter pill to swallow to go through that type of a rebuild, unless you have to. But let me give you a little silver lining. First of all, you've made up your mind on all the prospects, so a lot of them are 18 or 19 years old. You don't know if any of those guys will turn into special players. And I would argue that even if individually none of them is Macklin Celebrini, which I think is probably a fair bet, collectively, you could have a really good crop of players that can win. I would say that back in the early 2010s or whatever, Ryan Ellis, Matthias Ekholm, Roman Josi, a lot of that group, none of those guys were considered, Macklin Celebrini. But collectively, they were all really good, and you won a lot of games. I would look at it that way. And then there's the other way. It's more likely that you get the accelerator with a top 3 to 5 pick. There's no question. I can't argue with that. But it's not like everybody's like that. David Pastrnak was the 25th pick. He's right up there with those guys. Jason Robertson wasn't even a first-round pick. There are great players.
Nikita Kucherov.
Great players that were not high first-round picks.
Yep.
So it's not the only way to go. That's my biggest thing to take away. It's not the only way to get great is to make a commitment for 5 to 10 years to stink. There are other ways to be great.
Let's go to Logan on our phone line. Logan, thank you for waiting so patiently. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that with our prospect system, we should trade off all our UFAs that are coming up and let those guys come up. And if we let them come up and they don't succeed, then we're going down the rebuild path or whatever, but we're letting them learn as they're doing it.
Thank you for the call, Logan. I mean, look, one texter here. Let me find it. It's back here. Bob said, define tear down / rebuild. Is it trading O'Reilly, not signing the 3 stars like they did last year, getting rid of Forsberg? Yossi, define it. Well, I don't want to go back and relitigate what happened in free agency. I had skepticism about what they did in free agency, but I don't want to, the benefit of hindsight, I don't want to go down that road. So let's look at where the team is right now. Define tear down / rebuild. You are limited in what you can do because of the clauses in some of the contracts you've given out. Steven Stamkos has a no movement clause. Steven Stamkos does not have to be traded if he does not want to. So Barry Trotz can get the greatest deal on planet Earth for Steven Stamkos and say, Steven, I got a great offer today from the New Jersey Devils. They probably wouldn't do it, but that's the first team that came to mind. I got a great offer today from the New Jersey Devils. Steven Stamkos says, nah, not into it. He has that right. That's his contractual right. Jonathan Marchessault has a no movement clause in his contract. So same thing. If he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to go anywhere. Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, UC Saros, they all have no movement clauses in their contracts. So you are sort of handcuffed.
Those guys aren't going anywhere, other than maybe if Marchessault wanted to or Stamkos wanted to. I would say pretty unlikely. Marchessault maybe a little bit more of, we know Stamkos is thriving right now. I don't think he wants to get up and leave. To me, the key decisions are it's overwhelmingly O'Reilly is the key swing guy. The other guys are your normal guys in the last year of their contract. Are you going to keep one or two of them, trade one or two of them? You want to move them all out of here? Though that's a little more clear cut. And like the caller was saying before, if you traded all your centers, then you got to have somebody to play center.
Right.
That's a problem.
It would be tough. So to answer Bob's question, to define rebuild, I think Ryan O'Reilly is that hinge on what the Predators do. If the Predators trade Ryan O'Reilly, to me, that signifies really taking that step back because you are losing your only true top of the lineup center in your organization.
Glue. He's the glue that's holding everything
together. I think what the Predators decide to do with Ryan O'Reilly will tell you the direction that the franchise is going. Because as the franchise decides that they value Ryan O'Reilly and want him to be here and be a mentor and his leadership and everything like that, that tells you the direction that they're going. If they make a trade for Ryan O'Reilly, I think that would be a signifier that, hey, they are really taking that step back. Let's go to Michigan in the borough on our phone line. Michigan, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
I can't wait to get to the arena. I'm very excited to be on my way. I hope I run into Adam for very good reasons. I just want to shake his hand. I'm on the way there in my Scott Walker jersey, and it's appropriate that I'm thinking about somebody like Scott Walker. Willie did a bit of my content, which is, what do you really define as a rebuild and how much pain do you want to be felt? And it's really easy to say that you want to be Chicago because it was easy to do what Chicago did when you won 2 Stanley Cups and played for a third.
They won 3.
A great line in the Avengers in the first one. Everybody thinks they're ready for the pain till the pain starts. I don't know that anybody has the wherewithal to sit through what Buffalo's been through. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts on Kevin Adams as a candidate for the GM role, by the way. And even Vancouver's about to kick a third one off since the Sedin brothers. Like, the Rangers are about to go through a second one. Like, that's almost the worst case scenario of what could happen. You tore it down and you ended up with Kakko and Lafreniere. I'm just saying, all I want to say to you in retort, Adam, because I trust your opinion, is tanks are not foolproof, and you can still do that and end up with nothing. I'm out. I'll see you guys in a while.
See you in a minute, Michigan. So, I mean, I get it. There is risk involved, but there's risk involved in any transaction a team makes. Well,
the risk involved is, but you're starting off with the risk of you're gonna be bad for at least 5 years.
Yes,
you're gonna be bad.
You're saying it like nonchalant, like yes.
So that's built in, right? And I agree with you. There's risk involved with everything, but you're starting off the top by saying we know we're going to be bad. I just don't think you have to go down that road. There's so many in between. There's other lanes in between the extreme lane on either side. And I keep making the same point. It's not like the Predators keep doubling down on this group. They haven't done that at all. They haven't traded any future first round picks. They've been stockpiling a farm system responsibly for like 3 years. So, like, since they did that 3 years ago, they named Barry Trotz and they made the 4 trades. That was pretty much the end of the era of the 2015 to 2020, 2021 Predators that were a consistent playoff team that went to a cup final, that won a President's Trophy. That was a nice window that had ended. And you could argue that maybe if you could do it over again, they should have started a year, maybe 2 years before. I don't believe that, but I think that was a smart time to say it's time to retool. And they still are just scratching the surface of what benefits they're going to get from what they did 3 years ago. Because when you draft guys, they're 18. Those guys are all 20 or 21 years old now. So we haven't even seen what they're going to get from that yet.
But they can't do what you're suggesting, Adam. They can't do anyway because of the guarantee contracts, because of the contracts that can't be moved, the no movement clause. So even if you wanted to try to break it down to the studs, you can't, because you still have core guys that will be under contract on this team. If they don't want to go, they're not going.
Well, I guess you're right about that. The other part of that would be if you do that around them and Steven Stamkos says, this is not what I signed up for. I want out of here. Like that's one way around it, for example. You could trade O'Reilly and Bunting and Haula and McCarron and bring up young players, and then you start losing a lot, and Steven Stamkos says, hey, man, I'm getting older. I want to win another Stanley Cup before I retire. I'm out. Like that could be one way you could theoretically compel a player with a no movement clause to waive it. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your reaction on this. I do want to ask Derek Mason about something that's happening in football, because with the full slate of head coaching openings being filled, there is a discussion that's happening around the NFL, and I want Derek's opinion on it, and we'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Blues coming up tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6. Right here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick is off to prepare for the broadcast on FanDuel Sports Network. Today was a throw out the rundown kind of day. Derek Mason, we had a whole show planned before the news broke that Barry Trotz was retiring as GM. And you know what? We'll probably just do today's show tomorrow because there are a lot of topics that we can move over one day. But there is something I've seen discussed in the NFL that I want your opinion on. So now all of the head coaching openings have been filled in the NFL. Remember, there were 10 of them. All 10 have now been filled, either officially or soon to be official. Robert Saleh is the only person of color who was hired as a head coach in this cycle. He is, for those of you who don't know, he is Arab American of Lebanese descent. So Robert Saleh was the only person of color hired as a head coach in this cycle. There were 0 black coaches hired in this cycle. There are only 3 black head coaches in the NFL. Todd Bowles, Aaron Glenn, and D'Amico Ryans. And that number has gotten smaller because Mike Tomlin stepped down in Pittsburgh, and Mike McDaniel, who is biracial, was fired by the Miami Dolphins. So 3 black coaches in the NFL. Todd Bowles, Aaron Glenn, and D'Amico Ryans. And this continues to be a conversation, Derek, because as you know full well, the NFL is predominantly black in terms of the players. But the representation among head coaches doesn't reflect that diversity. So what do you make of the fact that no black head coach was hired by a team in this cycle with 10 openings, and that Robert Saleh was the only person of color hired by a team?
It's unfortunate. I will say that because this is not something that hasn't been spoken upon before. We've talked about this, every 2 or 3 years, this comes up. And when you have a coaching cycle with 10 openings and, you couldn't find one qualified individual, and again, you can't tell these owners who to hire. I get it. But, there are qualified individuals that, may deserve a second chance. Whether it's Vance Joseph or, Coach Raheem. And there are several other coaches now. When Tomlin stepped away, that sort of took a guy off the chessboard. But you can't tell me that are not other up and coming great minds. You look at somebody like T. Martin, who is a UT grad, who's with the Baltimore Ravens, who, each year he moves up on their coaching staff. I think right now he was the quarterback's coach or something to that effect. But guys like him that are, sort of coming up and proving their worth each and every time. Why can't guys like that get a true interview, not a sham interview just because of the Rooney Rule, but a true interview like, this is a guy we can hire? It seems like if you are not, a proven black head coach, then you ain't getting a second shot. Like if you don't do good on the first, more than likely, you ain't getting that second shot. It takes other guys like, that are still coaching, whether it's Todd Bowles. Well, Todd Bowles has a Super Bowl under his belt. He has had success, so he's more inclined to get another job. But what about those guys, those Mike Tomlins of the world, before they had all that success? You show patience with some, but you don't with others. That's just the way I look at it. But listen, like I said before, they can hire whoever they want to. And if they want to change, they'll change. Or the players are start doing whatever they need to do to help facilitate that change.
Do you think the NFL in general is just bad at hiring coaches? Let me give you some numbers from The Athletic. The last time the NFL had 10 head coaching openings in one offseason was 2022, just 4 years ago. 8 of those coaches have been fired already. From 2020 to 2022, 22 coaches were hired. 4 of them remained employed by those teams: Dan Campbell, Nick Sirianni, Kevin O'Connell, and Todd Bowles.
You know what the NFL, the NFL deals with, and we all deal with it at some point. And I can hear my mother saying, if you're not patient, you're going to end up messing up.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to end up having to do it over again. And damn it, I had to do it over and over and over again because I wasn't patient. I didn't take my time. These owners deal with the lack of patience. They hire an individual, and all the while, they're looking to their right and their left. And they're saying, well, this team is doing this and this team is doing that, but my team is not doing it fast enough. So, we got to make a change. And then they start that cycle over and over again. The Pittsburgh Steelers of the world, the Baltimore Ravens of the world, teams that have long tenured coaches, they're patient. They know they're going to have some downs, but they expect that they're going to have more ups. I think owners nowadays, they're too busy looking at one another to try to really concentrate on their team and know what they have or don't have and give that coach time. You sign Brian, let's just keep it here. You sign Brian Callahan to a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal. After a year and a half, you're done with them.
Mm-hmm.
You signed the GM for a deal. After a year and a half, 2 years, you were done with them. There was no patience. You know why? Because a lot of times it's one, the fans are chirping, and I get it. They want a better team. And then you're starting to look around like, okay, that team did it, but you don't look at what it took for them to get there and how many years they had to suffer. So it's, okay, it's basically you're rolling the dice. That's what owners, they're not all of them. I would say a lot of them treat their organizations like a dice game.
It was broken during our show. We've been talking a lot of Predators today for obvious reasons, but the Tennessee Titans are hiring Gus Bradley.
Another bald
guy. Confirmed. Gus Bradley as their next defensive coordinator, as our friend Teron Davenport notes. And Teron Davenport, who usually joins us on Monday, was kind enough to move to tomorrow because of all of the Predators news. So Teron Davenport will join us tomorrow instead of today. He writes, quote, Bradley joins Titans coach Robert Saleh in Tennessee after the two served as assistant head coach and defensive coordinator, respectively, for the San Francisco 49ers this past season. Saleh said Thursday that he intends to call the defensive plays in his second stint as a head coach. Bradley had a 14-48 record as the Jaguars coach from 2013 to 2016. The Jaguars hired Bradley after his most successful stint as a defensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks from 2009 to 2012. Your thoughts on the hire and the role he can play since Robert Saleh will be calling the defensive plays?
For one, T. Martin is the quarterback's coach with the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Wide receivers coach a year before that, or 2 years before that. I think it's, and I said this to you. I mean, you said, well, how does this affect? I said, really, it doesn't.
Right. My problem was in
yeah,
his last few years as defensive coordinator of the Colts,
they didn't do too
They
bad.
did not do well. And you
Exactly.
said that doesn't matter because Bradley isn't calling the plays.
Exactly. So ultimately, I think what it does is it gives another voice from a guy that's been there, that have been a coordinator, that have called plays at critical times. Because not only do I have to be the head coach, but I am the defensive coordinator. I am going to be calling plays, but I need that guy. Because Saleh talked about it, trust. He needs that guy that he can trust, that maybe is seeing it the same way he's seeing it, you know? So he can, in the moment where I'm sort of with the team, he can, hey, coach. So it's cool to have that other voice that has done it. But this is Saleh's show he's going to run the defense, and those other guys are there for support.
Clearly, the Titans are putting a premium on experience in making these hires. Robert Saleh, a former head coach. Brian Daboll, a former head coach. Gus Bradley, a former head coach. And yes, their records as head coaches, we can get more into that tomorrow because I do think it's interesting. But it's clear that the Titans, remember, when they went through the last coaching search, they hired a first-time head coach who had never called plays. They hired a first-time offensive coordinator. They hired a first-time defensive coordinator. Clearly, they are swinging it in the complete opposite direction.
They need the the experience. I think they're leaning more so on experience because they know what this roster needs. It's going to take a lot of teaching.
Yeah.
And they've already said breaking things down. So if I'm going to do that, I need some experienced people around me to help me facilitate it.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your reaction to the Titans hiring Gus Bradley to be their defensive coordinator. We will get back into the Titans tomorrow, as well as continue the conversation surrounding Barry Trotz retiring as Predators GM. News that broke this morning. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction to any and everything, and we will wrap up the show. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Fans filing into Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Blues tonight at 7 o'clock. Pre-game with Max High Maintenance Hers coming up at the top of the hour. Here's one thing we didn't do today, Derek, because we had breaking news and we had Sean Henry right off the top. we have a new segment on our program.
Yes.
Usually.
Yes.
I am going to give Derek Mason 60 seconds off the top of every show to vent about anything going on in his life or in sports. And we did not do that today. The suggested title for this segment from one texter was Mason Your Face.
Yes.
Which I like.
Uh-huh.
My suggestion was what's crawled up Derek's ass today. But I don't think that would go over as well. So let's do Mason Your Face right now. I've got it. We've got to hold it to 60 seconds.
Okay.
That's the trick. 60
But
seconds.
Before I get into it, I'm gonna preface it by saying this.
Okay.
I know some really good folks at NES.
Okay.
That are my friends. So whatever I say, it's not that I'm getting upset with them, but it's because that I'm a customer. This is where you got to speak.
Yes.
To power. You have to be able to tell the truth to power. So with that being said,
60 seconds starts now.
All right. With that being said, all right, Nashville, we knew this city was growing. We claim to be the it city, which we are. A lot of people move here. A lot of people want to move here. A lot of people are choosing to move here. If you know that is going to be the case, don't you think your infrastructure should increase as well? Didn't we just see what happened in Texas not too long ago where it completely wiped out their grid? We should have thought then, maybe we need to check and make sure that our grid with our city growing can hold the capacity. But it seems like we did not listen. Those that are working I commend them. Long hours. They are doing their best. But when the infrastructure isn't there, when you're still working off of old substations, you're not doing justice to your customer. And I am a customer. That's why I feel I can talk on this, because I am a customer of NES. With that being said, love you, NES. Keep doing the hard work and the good work. We thank you that you were there to get the power restored.
And time. I think you speak for a lot of frustrated Nashvillians. I was incredibly fortunate. I did not lose power during this process. Derek, you just said you got your power back on.
Got it back on yesterday.
And you were without it for more than a week.
Yes.
Willie Donick still doesn't have power.
No, he doesn't.
And it's been more than a week. I did receive a message today.
Uh-huh.
That was one of the greatest messages I've ever received.
What's that?
Right underneath when I was there for my son's birth, so I didn't get a message that my son was born because I was there. School reopens tomorrow. I got that message today, and I was like, thank the Lord. Arlo is going back to school tomorrow. He has missed 6 consecutive days of school. He missed all of last week, and he was out today, but his school is back up and running.
It's like Christmas over there.
Yes. It's going to be a rude awakening when he wakes up tomorrow and says, Dad, do we have school today? You're damn right you do. Get in the car, son. We're going to school. So, you know what? It's been fun to have him at home. I know it's challenging, and a lot of you are dealing with the same things as well, because we didn't get time off from work, and we had to work around the fact that our children weren't in school, but
they had to be safe.
They had to be safe, and
things were off.
We're glad that everything, for the most part, is okay. Again, the breaking news today: Barry Trotz announced this afternoon that he is retiring as Predators general manager. He will stay on in that role until the Predators find his replacement. He will assist in the search for the next GM. The Predators are working with the agency CAA to do this search. Trotz will be a part of it. Bill Haslam, Sean Henry, Michelle Kennedy, even Nick Saban will be part of the next GM search for the Predators. And I do want to say this. Barry Trotz, by the way, will continue to come on our program.
Mm-hmm.
He is expected to join us on Wednesday, because we will be here on Wednesday, but he will still be on the program. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Barry Trotz, not only as a GM and a coach, a hockey person in general, but as a human being. You know, I covered Barry as a coach right before I moved to Nashville because I was in Washington, his first season in Washington. And Barry Trotz was good to me then. He continues to be good to me now. Any of you who have interacted with Barry Trotz know just how wonderful of a man he is. So I saw the emotion in his face, the tears in his eyes today as he discussed this decision. And I just want to say congratulations to Barry Trotz. Do I agree with every decision he's made as Predators GM? No. But that is beside the point. It's about the person. And Barry Trotz is a good man. I remember somebody once telling me that if you don't like Barry Trotz, there's something wrong with you, not something wrong with him. And I completely agree with that. So congratulations to Barry Trotz. He's still sticking around. He's a part of the organization, but congratulations to him. I know it meant a lot to him to be able to spend time with his family. So I just want to share that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was the tough part, especially, again, this is an organization that, whether, there has to be some type of retooling, tearing down, something has to happen. And with that happening, there's more time that it takes for you to help facilitate that. And, the way, Barry spoke, it's maybe spending time with his family is a little bit more important, because, they said it when Barry, and Sean even said it, when Barry's doing something, he's doing it all the way.
Yeah.
It's no, I'm doing it 70% or 80. No, I'm all in it. And when you have a franchise like this that is still growing, you got to be all in it. And it takes time away from some of the other things that you really care about, like your family.
Yes. And I know, look, I love having a spirited debate on this program. Willie and I don't yell at each other very much. So we didn't really yell at each other today. But we disagree with exactly how the Predators should proceed. I am a believer that a true rebuild may be necessary to get this team back to where it wants to go. There are countless examples, as Willie pointed out, of teams taking a small step back and it's still working out. And that is true. There are many different ways that teams have undergone this process. I just think, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think these fans are smart enough and mature enough to know to handle some lean years. Predators fans have been spoiled. This team rarely has been in a position where it's not at least challenging for a playoff spot. So I understand the trepidation from some of you about tearing it all down and being really bad and missing the playoffs and maybe winning 20 to 30 games in a season. I know that it doesn't sound fun, but part of me does truly believe that that's what it's going to take for this team to get back to where I've seen it be. I mean, I had the privilege of covering this team when it was at its best. I got here in 2015. I covered the playoff run in 2016, the win in Anaheim, the 7 games against San Jose, of course, the Stanley Cup final run, the President's Trophy season. I was there for all of it. I was there every day. And I know that this team can be good. I just think that where this team is right now, I don't see a high ceiling. I think they are going to have to make some really tough decisions. And you are right, Derek. The Predators are handcuffed in making some of those tough decisions because they have players who would be of value to other teams who have clauses in their contracts that allow them to nix any trade. And that makes it tough. But I think last season was a blessing in disguise. They were bad enough to be in the lottery. It didn't work out, but they got a top 5 pick. Let's see what Brady Martin becomes. I'm just saying, and I said this before, I want what's best for you, the Predators fans. All of you in here right now, all of you listening on your way to the game, I want what's best for you. And sometimes I wonder if the Predators are willing to do what it takes for them to be best for you. And sometimes that means being bad. That's my point. That's my point. Look, it's
being good for you means being bad for us.
yes, that's right. I want to do what's I want.
I'm gonna do what's bad, but good for you.
I mean, here's a quick question from Big K on our text line. If you tear it down, what percentage of fans do you think are going to leave? I think a lot of these fans are bandwagon fans from those good runs, and I think they will leave if we tear it down.
Yeah,
we will get to that. Brian on our text line says, from the D.C. area, met Trotz while Christmas shopping. Incredibly nice guy. Love him. I think that's perfect. Barry Trotz, he is one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Have you ever ran into somebody like, man, I met Barry Trotz. Man, that dude, I don't like that dude.
No, never. I have never met someone who dislikes Barry Trotz as a human being. Again, you may disagree with some of his decisions as a coach or GM, but as a human being, he is. Oh my God. Okay. 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 Do we have time for this? How much time do we have? We have 5 minutes. Okay.
Yes, let's go.
Okay. JC in Goodlettsville on our text line says, and I quote, "Shut up, Adam. Best playoff run ever was the 8th seed." Oh my God, JC. JC, I was really
stirring them up, JC.
JC, let me just tell you this before I get started. I've been at this arena since around 10 o'clock this morning because I went to all of the news conferences and I never left. I've got one of those splitting headaches that's so bad I feel like I'm going to throw up. And I've kept it in because I'm a professional. So I'm a little agitated right now. All right, JC, you're going to make me do this. I'm going to do this. Yes, the Predators' best playoff run was as an 8th seed. Let me tell you a couple of facts. Fact number 1. In the wild card era, since 2014, there have been only 2 teams out of 40 total to make the Stanley Cup Final as a wild card team. The Predators in 2017 and the Panthers in 2023. 2 out of 40. Since 2014, wild card teams have an overall 7-game series record of 17-40. 17 out of 57. That's a winning percentage of less than 30%. So yes, the playoff run in 2017 was great. As I said, I was there. I was at every game. Every game here, every game in Chicago, St. Louis, Anaheim, and Pittsburgh. It was awesome. To think that, hey, if the Predators sneak in, anything can happen. It's such a what's the word? I don't want to say the word I want to say. I don't want to say the word I want to say.
Please don't.
It's not a bad word. It's such.
Say it.
You want me to say it?
Say it.
Okay. It's such a loser way of thinking.
Yes.
It's such a loser way of thinking. If I get into the playoffs or if our team gets into the playoffs, anything can happen. It's such a loser way of thinking. It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I told you it's happened. But I'm playing the odds here. And the odds are, if the Predators make the playoffs, they are no better than a first-round exit, most likely. And that's again, the dangerous thinking. I want more than that. I want more than just making the playoffs and seeing if anything can happen. Yes, I know if you go back to I can't remember if it was 2012 or 2014, which LA Kings team won the Stanley Cup as an 8th seed. That team, by the way, was a defensive juggernaut, one of the greatest defensive teams in recent NHL history. Even the Predators in 2017, that team had an elite top 4 on defense. Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi, PK Subban, Matthias Ekholm. And a borderline Hall of Famer in goal in Pecorino. This team doesn't have that. So, JC, I appreciate the text. Don't tell me to shut up.
Thank you, JC.
You shut up.
Yeah,
you shut up, JC.
You started it, JC.
Thanks for the clips, JC.
You told the man to shut up. If you just came to him kindly and not aggressive, then you would have got the other Adam and not this one.
Yes, I try not to be that way because I like to think of myself. I'm even keeled. I'm open minded. Willie was bringing up some great points earlier. I'm not just going to shut out Willie and say I'm not listening to anything you're saying because this is the way I think and that's the only way to think. I am willing to be swayed. I am open minded. That's how my mind works. But the one thing I will not be open minded on is let's make the playoffs and anything could happen. You shut up. Okay. All right. That'll do it for us.
Yes.
That'll do it for us today on the program. We will continue reacting to Barry Trotz's decision to retire tomorrow. We will get into the Titans as well. Basically, we're going to do the show tomorrow that we meant to do today.
Yes.
Teron Davenport will join us. Trevor Maddich will join us. We'll talk football. We'll talk hockey. We'll talk Super Bowl. We'll talk it all. 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Be loved. Love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team love you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. Back in the studio tomorrow, 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.